Can you beat Punch Out for the Wii using only one punch per fight? After beating the game without dodging, it's about time we gave Little Mac the Saitama treatment and ease up on the punches. For this run, the rules are simple. In each fight, we only get to throw one punch. That's it. So if that's the case, we'll need to do our best to beat every single match by decision. And when that comes down to health bars, that means that sure enough, we can't get hit once. And with the guidelines set in place, folks, buckle in, because it's time to take on the One Punch Challenge. Hey all of you heroes for hobby, I'm Skip the Tutorial, and here we get to the bottom of gaming's weirdest challenges. And hey, if this is your first time here, then spare your one punch on that subscribe for weekly deep dives into your biggest questions. Now it's immediately apparent going into this run that not every fight is going to be created equal, which makes sense. Obviously, dodging one of Glass Joe's hooks just isn't going to give the same trouble as Bald Bull's rush. But what really did surprise me about this run is how some fights radically change in difficulty, especially with certain fights getting easier than they were before. When someone like Super Macho Man starts feeling at home in the minor circuit, it begs the question, why such a 180? And I think the reason this run gets so different from a normal playthrough is that we aren't triggering the later phases of their fight patterns. Don Flamenco is the spitting image of this concept, since not only do we never get to knock off his toupee, but we also don't get baited by so many of his attacks, making the major circuit champion one of the easiest in the game. Hell, that even applies to Donkey Kong, since he just defaults to two basic attacks when we let him be, and when his tie is in his eyes, then that's the perfect opportunity to get the punch. In some cases, this run definitely handicaps our opponents, but in others, oh boy. So to talk about those, here are the 7 fights that make doing 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and squats every single day seem like a breeze. Ranked from difficult to, oh my god, what? Number 7, Title Defense is Disco Kid. Now, this fight's difficult for all of the wrong reasons. Because on a surface level, this one seems pretty easy. Since we're only doing one hit of damage, he doesn't exactly improve his moveset. His infamous Disco Flurry attack doesn't come into the mix, and because of it, some simple dodges can just get us through. That is, until we make it to the round 3 buzzer, and notice that he has his whole life bar back. When I first saw that, my whole life flashed before my eyes. I swore that I'd hit him. So what happened? Well, unlike his contender face-off, this time, if we don't intercept his taunt, he'll gain some life back. And if that goes unchecked, then we lose our title in the decision. So while at its core, this fight might not be as strenuous as some of the others from Title Defense, it's the subtle mechanics at play here that really highlighted an issue in the run, one that we'd have to face in much more serious conditions. Such as, number 6, Title Defense is Soda Pop. This is like Disco Kid if he knew how to fight. In this case, we do get some of the same benefits, since certain moves like his combo attacks never happen if we don't knock him down or punch the bottle out of his hand. But that's not to say this one's a cakewalk. To beat this fight, so much of the strategy just comes down to memorizing his 9-punch pattern. And once we get that down, it really is just avoiding his irregularly timed attacks and picking up the weird intervals. Now, one thing to note is that it's not too far off from his contender appearance. So what makes this time significantly more difficult? Well, just like Disco Kid, the issue here comes down to a regeneration concept. During the intermission between rounds, he'll take the time we spend lollygagging and listening to Doc to heal up with some scientific soda. And that'll put us to a loss if we're not careful. So on top of the struggle of just making it to round 3 against this guy, we also need to squeeze in an uppercut right before the timer runs out. It's a setup that allows for a lot of error, and it'll require plenty of restarts if we slip below perfection. Number 5, Title Defense Super Macho Man. Unlike his contender counterpart, Macho Man gets a whole lot of support this time through. In my book, the main problem for that has to be his speed. On paper, it's fairly straightforward to understand this pattern. A couple of punches from our right, follow up on the left, duck the clothesline, rinse repeat. But when those punches on the left are almost overlapping in their timing, it can cause some serious issues, especially if you're as slow as I am. The real suggestion to get through this fight is just learning the pattern and timing, but an exhibition match might be the best place for that, because the number of resets required to just figure out what's going on in the real deal is ridiculous. And worst of all, we don't even get to release the bogus once for this fight. It's just a bad time all around. Number 4, title defense's Bald Bull. This one comes down to a straight endurance match. Unlike some of the other World Circuit counterparts, Bull doesn't like to hold back with his moveset. This means that even when he requires the same pattern recognition and study as the other fighters, he's a much tougher opponent to figure out. But even after fighting him several times, I still got schooled by his uppercut, so I guess some problems always stick. But as every Punch-Out veteran knows, the real pain here comes from the Bull charge. Since we can only knock him down once, we'll need to dodge past this punch every single time after. Which is to say, he'll go for several of the things in a row before he even tuckers out. And truth be told, I almost put the contender fight in this slot because my console would start to lag like crazy after all of the particle effects from the third attack. But title defense still takes the cake in the category, because he goes on for 4 of the charges instead. And unlike the contender run, we don't even get the satisfaction of knocking him down one time with the punch. It's a lose-lose situation. Number 3, contender Mr. Sandman. If I had to boil down this fight into one phrase, it'd have to be swift overhead punch. Because good God, the window to dodge this one is crazy small, so we can't let our minds wander for a second, or else we'll have to restart. But even adding on top of that, his Dreamland Express move can be a real threat as well, since he'll try his best to throw off our timing if we're not careful. Really, he's a tough combo to master, but it's worth it for moments like this.
Tell your face! Leave my fists alone.
Yeah, maybe once, pal. And taking him down there makes the contender run possible. But what about the part 2 in title defense? Number 2, title defense Mr. Sandman. So many of the problem points from the other fights that we discussed come back full force here. If the speed of Macho Man was a problem, then you're not ready for the breakneck blink punches. Or the pure patience needed for matches like Bald Bull reaches a boiling point here, with his pattern taking a crazy 18 punches before looping, if you count the 2 Dreamland Expresses. This can make each round feel incredibly long, especially since we don't get the downtime of stun frames like you would in a regular run. For that reason, round 2 is where I personally wore down. I crossed the 5-hour mark in this run, and my goldfish brain couldn't keep track of where I was in the pattern, meaning plenty of brain damage for Little Mac. But mental roadblocks aside, we have the full opportunity here to learn the pattern and then practice like crazy. So we bear through the onslaught of Afridi rushes in round 3, and then duck right one last time to take the decision win. And while I wish that was it, we still haven't talked about the toughest fight in the game. Number 1. Title defense King Hippo. Alright, so what makes this fight so much tougher than Sandman? I mean, King Hippo's moves are fairly straightforward. He even plays like a near carbon copy of Contender in his phase 1. So what gives? Well, because as far as I know, it's impossible. Now, we're able to land a hit. That part's not a problem. Just wait till he opens his mouth, go for a swing, and that'll throw him in a stun. But it's all fake. No damage is done unless we take the extra hits to knock off his tape. And when I first checked that out, I thought this was just the same situation as the original King Hippo fight, since there he gets hit in the teeth and there's no visible damage. But with the way that this one is programmed, we don't have that same opportunity until the first tape snaps. So, in my research, we need 5 punches to get the decision here. That's not going to cut it. With that said, title defense might be impossible, but we can take down the contender run as one punch back. And with that, folks, run 10 kilometers on this one in the top right to see us take down Punch-Out without dodging. Or duck to this one in the bottom right for another video. If you want to support the channel and get new videos every week, then use a star punch on that subscribe button. But until then, take care, and you have a good one, alright?